Today, we're going to break down a new law that is completely changing the game for how you interact with, well, pretty much everything online in India. We're talking about the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, and believe me, it's a really big deal. So, let's get right into it.
Come on, be honest. You download a new app, this little box pops up asking for permission to use your data, and what do? You just tap yes. We all do it, right? For years, we've been mindlessly clicking that button, basically giving away the keys to our digital lives without a second thought. And that, right there, is the heart of the problem we've all been living with. Every single click, every search, every time you signed up for something, it left behind this digital breadcrumb trail of your personal information that, let's face it, we had almost no control over. Companies could scoop it up, use it, and sometimes even sell it, all without us really knowing what was going on. Well, that whole era is coming to an end. The Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023, or the DPDP Act for short, is here. And you should think of it less as some boring set of rules and more like a digital shield. It's a tool designed to put you back in the driver's seat of your own information. This isn't just another law, it's a whole new chapter for digital empowerment. So, what does this digital shield actually do? Let's start with the most basic, most fundamental change it makes. The answer to the question, who really owns your data? To really get what this law is about, think of it like this. Imagine your local milk shop owner, Ravi. He's got a notebook with all his customers' names and phone numbers. Now, what if one day he just sells that notebook to some big marketing company? All of a sudden, his customers are getting spam calls left and right. The DPDP Act is basically the rule that says, hey, Ravi, you can't do that, but for the entire digital world. So the law protects what it calls personal data. But what does that actually mean? Well, it's pretty much any piece of information that can be traced back to you. Your name, your phone number, those are the obvious ones. But it also includes things like your location data, your email address, your ADR number, and, yep, even your browser history. The new rule is simple. If it can identify you, it's protected. Now, a change this big doesn't happen overnight. The Act itself was passed way back in August 2023. Then, in November of 2025, the government released the detailed rules, spelling out exactly how it's all going to work. And companies have been given some time to get their act together, with the final deadline for full compliance set for May 2027. Okay, so with this new law in place, our data now moves through a much more organized system. And to really understand how it all works, you got to know the three main players in this whole data story. So let's meet them. First, and without a doubt, the most important player is the data principal. And that's you. It's me. It's every single one of us whose data is being collected. In this new story, you are the main character. You're the owner of the information. Simple as that. Next up is the data fiduciary. This is the company or the organization that's collecting your data, like Google or your bank or that shopping website you use all the time. The word fiduciary is really important here. It means they have a duty of trust. They are now legally required to be a responsible guardian of your information. And finally, we have the data processor. Now, this is usually a third-party company that handles the data for the fiduciary. So, for example, a food delivery app, that's the fiduciary, might use a cloud service to store its customer database. That cloud service is the processor. But here's the crucial part. Even if a processor is involved, the fiduciary, the app you actually gave your data to, is still the one who's ultimately responsible for keeping it safe. All right, now that we know the players, let's get to the new rule book they all have to follow. This is where the real power of the DPDP Act kicks in, especially when it comes to something we've all been talking about for years: consent. You know that I agree button? Yeah, it's on a much, much tighter leash now. For your consent to even be considered valid, it has to check all these boxes. It has to be specific. A company can't just ask for your data. They have to tell you exactly why they need it. It has to be informed, written in plain, simple language, not a bunch of legal jargon. And you have to take a clear action, like actually ticking a box. And this part is huge. You can take back that consent anytime you want. Of course, there are a few exceptions. The law recognizes certain legitimate uses, where asking for consent just doesn't make sense. We're talking about common sense situations here. A hospital needing your data in a medical emergency, the government processing it for a license, or a company needing it for legal reasons. This makes sure the law is practical and doesn't get in the way of essential stuff. So, what happens when things go wrong? Well, the new rules are crystal clear on this. If a company gets hacked and your data gets leaked, that's a data breach. They can't just sweep it under the rug anymore.
They now have a maximum of 72 hours to report that breach to the authorities. No more hiding. This kind of mandatory transparency is a massive step forward.
Look, this new framework isn't just about putting new rules on companies. It's about giving new rights to you. And to make absolutely sure those rights are respected, the law comes with some very, very serious penalties for anyone who breaks the rules. This is where the law really shows its teeth.
And we are not talking about small fines here. If a company fails to protect your data properly, they could face a penalty of up to 250 crore rupees. Using data without proper consent or breaking the special rules for kids' data, that could cost a company up to 200 crore. These numbers send a very clear message. Protecting our data is no longer just a good idea, it's a primary cost of doing business. So what does all of this actually mean for you, day to day? It means you now have a toolkit of really powerful digital rights. You have the right to know exactly what data a company has on you. You have the right to get it corrected if it's wrong. You have the right to ask them to delete it. And if they don't listen, you now have the right to file a complaint with the official Data Protection Board. Think of it as your personal control panel for your digital life. At the end of the day, the Digital Personal Data Protection Act gives us all a powerful shield. It completely rebalances the power between us as individuals and the giant platforms we use every single day. The framework is here, the rights are defined, and the shield has been forged. The only question left is for us, the users. Now that we have this shield, will we learn how to use it?